This is Batshit Crazy, a podcast dedicated to all things strange and unusual, with your spirit guides Heather and Dylan, who will take you to the other side. Subject matter featured on Batshit Crazy may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to Batshit Crazy. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
And we've had a bit of a hiatus, but we are back. Summer break.
We have to come back, right? There's just too much crazy shit going on in the world.
Too much crazy shit going on in the world right now, and so many conspiracy theories bubbling out there. It gives us miles of material for sure.
Yeah, this shit writes itself.
For real, it does. So, Dylan, something that I've noticed over the past few years in the conspiracy, or some folks call it the truther community.
Yes, it is
right?
the truther community in some cases.
This is a story that's just kind of, I guess, it sort of ran amok, if you will. And it's discussing sex trafficking, which we all know is a very important issue.
And very real.
In our world. Something that definitely is happening. But for some reason, conspiracy theorists have ran wild with stories that celebrities like the DJ/musician Avicii, Anthony Bourdain, who you probably know being a chef from TV.
He was the bad boy chef.
Like, that's a thing. Singer, musician Chris Cornell from the band Soundgarden, and also Chester Bennington of Linkin Park are killed and made, and it's made to look like a suicide by the powers that be because they were working to expose elite pedophile rings and sex trafficking.
And these powers that be are very patient. They can spread out their over the course of years. Their plan can be put in place, which now I'm saying that, and some people's out there like, well, hey, there's century-old plans being played out right now. I do know that some of these dark forces do plan over centuries, okay? But I just don't know in this case if that's what is happening. And it's anything that happens in Hollywood. Anybody dies in any way, it's like people can make this breadcrumb trail that always leads back to, well, they must have been going to expose the cabal, the sex trafficking cabal. And you have one very recent example of that, right?
Well, this week alone, new theories have sprung up involving the death of actor Anne Heche. Heche was reportedly working on a Lifetime movie about sex trafficking, which led TikTokers around the world to speculate she was killed as part of a plot to keep the truth from surfacing. Heche has admittedly struggled with a pretty open battle with drug and alcohol abuse, as well as mental health issues. Very, very public battle. Though her death is tragic, it can hardly be substantiated as a conspiracy to eliminate another Hollywood star for speaking out. She was not a vocal advocate against sex trafficking. I could find nothing where she's been a vocal advocate about this. And it was not a documentary film that she was working on, but rather a Lifetime movie, which we all know those are hardly award-winning pieces of entertainment, but rather very overly dramatized budget films to scare housewives across America. And I probably have somebody yelling at me right now about how much they love Lifetime movies.
And that's fine.
Cool for you.
But I don't think
these are not groundbreaking.
It was not going to be any. You're not going to catch any groundbreaking expose, investigative journalism kind of stuff on Lifetime, right? I think we can all agree on that.
This is not going to win an Academy Award.
No, they design very formulaic movies, be it Christmas, or Not Without My Cousin.
Stepson, my lover.
Yeah, things like that. And hey, I've caught myself watching them before and I'm engrossed. So it's not like it's not some kind of entertainment there.
There's entertainment value there.
Yes, but I don't think that is going to be at the forefront of exposing a sex trafficking cabal. I'm sorry.
And yes, Anne Heche's death is very tragic. And any time an addiction or mental health issues can lead to a person's demise, very sad loss for her family, her friends, for, everyone who enjoyed her as an actor, a performer. But let's be honest, Dylan, if she was just your average Joe.
Average Joe or Jill.
Exactly. And this person did the same thing Anne Heche did, which apparently she was high on cocaine. She had been recording a podcast earlier in the day where she admittedly had been drinking vodka and wine, coupled with, having cocaine in her system, and is driving through residential neighborhoods at 100 miles per hour, crashes into a house, potentially could have killed the resident of the home.
Oh, she hit that house doing 100.
People would not be like, oh, this poor person. People would be like, that monster. That person's a maniac.
Yes.
They deserve to be behind bars. But because she's a beloved actress, people think, oh, well, she deserves sympathy and we can forget the bad deeds that she just did.
Well, see, there's video evidence of an actual timeline. I'm sure many people have seen it already. And it proves that she was out of control. I think it may be possibly a mental issue or break coupled with drugs in her system.
Which is sad.
And that is sad. And that is very, very sad. But I mean, and she was burned very, very badly. I mean, you could see her leg when they were bringing her out, and they had to wait. They had to extract the car out of the home with her in it, and I'm sure that took quite some time. This was a horrific wreck. I think people are kind of glossing over that. Hit a house at a dead-end street.
The house caught fire.
The house caught fire, and she's doing nearly 100 or whatever when she hits the home.
Fortunately, the homeowner was okay. She, I believe, did have a few minor injuries and did seek hospital treatment.
Yeah, and that's only because she didn't happen to be standing in the part of the house this missile came blasting into, right?
Very, very scary situation.
But she was burned very badly, and people's like, oh, did you see? She jumped up off the stretcher, and she's a trauma victim. Trauma victims can do all kinds of things. Your body's in shock. You got your adrenaline's pumping.
Exactly.
And she's burned very badly, and I don't know if they induced the coma because of the burns, which is quite often the case when you're severely burned, and then she didn't recover from that, or she passed away. Well, I think a lot of people are just missing things like how bad burns can be.
She had a brain injury as well.
And yeah, I mean, most people would not survive that wreck.
No, absolutely not.
So I just think it's a big stretch, and I think it dilutes the real conspiracies and the real obvious examples of sex trafficking that we see almost on a weekly basis.
Right, so let's begin, Dylan, by first diving into this conspiracy by taking a look at Swedish DJ Avicii, whose real name was Tim Bergling. Now, many theorists began touting this theory after the singer's death by pointing to his music video For a Better Day.
Hey, look, and all these people that have been kind of thrown in this group, I mean, he obviously had a point to make, and that video is powerful.
The video shows powerful imagery of men, seemingly men with power, right, who are involved in the trafficking of children. We see a field with a box truck. Inside, the viewer catches a glimpse of children's legs, clothed only in underwear. And then we get flashes of masked men murdering and then checking off a kill list of folks who seem to be involved in a trafficking ring.
Oh, it's a man and a woman.
Oh, a man and a woman. I'm sorry.
Yes, the boy and girl.
Right. And then it comes full circle in the end, and you realize there's sort of like a little it's like a little short film to this music video. I mean, it's definitely a disturbing video. It's steeped in visuals that are haunting, and it does make a very valid point about what is happening in the world.
Right.
Right?
Very.
Now, theorists also point to the fact that Avicii's own manager had joked about working the performer to death. He performed 900 shows in 8 years.
I don't know the statistics on shows, but that seems like a lot of shows.
It's a lot of shows, Dylan. He died from massive blood loss, reportedly from a glass bottle, and left no suicide note. His own family has blamed his manager for the hectic work schedule, and others have noted that the schedule seems to mimic performers who were overworked and controlled, like Britney Spears and Michael Jackson.
So, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, there's certainly some I don't know, abuses going on, but I don't know. I don't know if when you work someone like that, they don't even have a time to think to themselves. It's poor Brittany. She'll never fully recover from what was done to her when she was younger. I saw her on TikTok last night. She's a little kooky nowadays, right?
Swedish DJ Avicii took his own life on April 20th of 2018 in Oman, and people say it was on royal property. Others have pointed to the singer's longtime struggles with depression and drug abuse as a reason for the suicide, much like the case with Anne Heche, drug abuse, addiction issues. Just a day before his death, an acquaintance of Avicii's had met him on this trip to Oman and ended up contacting the performer's father because he was really concerned about the medications that Avicii was taking. The friend explained that Avicii wasn't eating or speaking.
Oh.
During this meeting or while he was around the performer.
Almost like kind of in a catatonic state, unresponsive kind of thing.
And this person later called Avicii's father to inform him of his son's suicide. His final message in his journal read, quote, "The shedding of the soul is the last attachment before it restarts."
Okay.
Yeah. So then that brings us to the next piece of this puzzle, and that is in July of 2017, Linkin Park singer Chester Bennington's apparent suicide shocked fans of the band. The death came only a few months after Chris Cornell's suicide, both sad blows to the music industry. People on the internet began debating the truthfulness behind Bennington's suicide, and it didn't take long for truthers to start babbling. The theories connecting Bennington and Cornell, murder cover-ups, and rumors of government involvement are about as far-fetched as you can get. Cornell and Bennington were friends, and their deaths were eerily similar. Now, after Chris Cornell's death, Bennington posted a moving letter on Twitter addressing the death of his friend, saying, quote, "I can't imagine a world without you in it." Both men died by hanging. A medical examiner told the Detroit Free Press that he was not convinced Chris Cornell's death was a suicide.
Ooh.
He had allegedly hung himself with an exercise resistance band. And there were mentions on the internet, though I could not confirm 100%, that Cornell had broken ribs when they did the autopsy report.
Okay.
And people are saying yes because he was probably attacked before he was murdered.
So okay, that's kind of weird. The exercise elastic band. I think we all have seen a version of that. What if you jumped off and it's like your feet hit the ground because it's stretchy, right? And you're just like, shit, that's not going to work. So do you find any of those circumstances around Mr. Cornell's death? God rest his soul. He was incredible, very talented person. Do you find any of that strange?
If it is true that he had broken ribs.
That's a bit odd.
I believe someone else pointed that he had some kind of head, like a wound on his head. Now, that is very strange. And to have this secondary medical examiner tell an accredited newspaper, yes, this is suspicious.
Okay.
I mean, those do make me wonder.
Man, we don't know all the circumstances of who found him, how he was brought down from the hanging position.
I didn't look into all
No,
that.
but I'm saying they're very well some of these you just don't know because it's just an instinct when you see someone hanging, even if they're obviously dead. I could imagine it'd be horrible to find someone in that state. Very sad, but to get them down fast as it's just an instinct, and so we don't know. Maybe his ribs could have been injured and someone cutting him down, for lack of better phrasing.
Now, Chester Bennington did have a history of depression and had been open about his struggles. Theorists point to a photo of Chester Bennington and John Podesta. Now, the pair share similar faces for sure. And if you're not familiar with the name John Podesta, he served as Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. In the time leading up to the 2016 election, emails from Podesta's account were exposed, and internet sleuths noticed something strange. A coded language seem to be used in the emails, including really weird mentions of food. And this is what will become known
Don't
as
you dare say it.
Pizzagate.
Oh, my God. Yeah, so in the truther realm, if you don't know about Podesta, you may have heard about the political, we'll call him a political guy with the very strange art. Okay? If you've never seen...
Podesta's brother, Tony, is the one with the strange art. Okay?
Okay.
So you're getting it confused.
I did get confused. But Benningfield and Bennington and Podesta are eerily similar. Some people have even claimed that possibly that's his father. They look exactly alike.
Well, yeah, we're going to get to that.
Oh, my gosh.
So conspiracy theorists began believing these emails were referring to some sort of government-based child trafficking ring, using foods as code names for something else. Like, for example, who orders $65,000 worth of pizza and hot dogs to cater an event, especially when the White House caters its own events?
Okay, that's weird.
Rumors circulated that Podesta was Bennington's father, as you mentioned, Dylan, and it's hard to dispute how strikingly similar the two men look.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't know that aspect, and you showed me a side-by-side, and I was blown away. I got to be honest. As far as that goes, I was kind of blown away because they look... It's not maybe, could be, or they got the same eyes. They look exactly the same. It's kind of weird.
In 2014, Lincoln Park member Mike Shinoda wrote a piece for the Huffington Post about the band's nonprofit organization called Music for Relief. The charity was helping with a sustainable recycling program in Haiti after the devastating 2010 earthquake. Now, the Clinton Foundation came around offering help in the form of a grant to continue finishing their work because Music for Relief was running into a financial issue. They didn't have the funding to continue working in Haiti.
So they were halfway through their project and were running out of money.
Exactly. So the Clinton Foundation gave them a grant in which John Podesta, again, now he's rumored to be the father of Bennington, and he has connections to Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, and just so happens to fund this nonprofit's work in Haiti.
This one of hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits working there.
Yes.
This is the one he helps, reaches out and helps fund.
And so that is rooted in truth. So when we look at these conspiracy theories, sometimes I look at this stuff and I think, who came up with this, right? Because you have to have there has to be like a little string. And once you pull that, you find other information to kind of back up your theory. But some of this shit is just people making it up, and it's not rooted in anything.
No, you have to have that grain. In my opinion, I share the same opinion as you. You have to have that grain of truth, that little bit of fact as to where you start your journey down the rabbit hole, right?
Exactly.
And as you start pulling that thread, you start seeing these connections. And sometimes they're not obvious at first until you find more connections. But then you should be able to say, well, it started here, and that led me here, blah, blah, blah. And then you should be able to explain that to someone, and they say, oh, okay, wow. I don't believe all that, but that is really weird how that... But if you don't have that beginning of the thread, then I don't know... Then you get these blinders on, and people are bad for this anyway, and you start twisting things to fit your narrative. And then
which is what happens, I think, in this conspiracy theory. So this Chester Bennington, John Podesta connection with the Clinton Foundation, Music for Relief, this situation in Haiti. Now that does, to me, okay, that holds some water.
Yeah, there's some truth. I think there's something going on there in that one situation.
Right.
He looks just like him. It's kind of odd that, this guy with connections who looks just like his dad with connections to the Clinton Foundation reaches out, and all of a sudden they have their funding to finish their little project in Haiti. That's strange. And if the whole conversation was about that, I would be like, well, I guess I kind of see why you might think that. But I think they use that to, and this is what happens too in these false narratives sometimes. They'll have something that does make sense, or are connections, but it's not connected to the other thing, but they kind of connect it, Yeah.
Chester Bennington had given an interview back in 2008 in which he revealed that he had been sexually abused as a child, which is another piece of the puzzle for these truthers.
Join the club.
Then we get a report from a website called Neon Nettle that Chris Cornell was working with foundations focused on protecting kids from sexual abuse and trafficking. There are some connections, but anyone with enough spare time can take a shred and run with it, blowing it into a full-grown conspiracy theory that takes over the internet. And as far as I can find, there was absolutely no organization that has openly admitted that Chris Cornell was working with them to combat sex trafficking.
So it's just like this blanket statement. Well, Chris Cornell was working with organizations to combat sex trafficking.
Yes.
But what organization?
From a website called Neon Nettle, which is a very, that's obviously a very polished news organization, right?
Right. So what organization? When?
Exactly.
And what capacity?
There's it's not been named, the organization. I mean, we don't have any information other than this website making an allegation.
Okay.
Which any of us could do. I could go on a website right now and say, like, Madonna is a lizard person and she was working with a pro-lizard organization.
Which one?
I mean, come on.
But you can, but that would be my next question. Be like, which one? Oh my God, I want to look into this. And you're like, well, just an organization.
In 2018, she made a donation to a rainforest organization that was saving the lizards in a campaign. Okay.
Oh, it's called terraforming. They're changing our planet to fit their atmospheres.
Others have pointed to the fact that actor Brittany Murphy and her husband died under mysterious circumstances, and that they were present at Chris Cornell's wedding. A video of Brittany Murphy partying at the reception was up for sale on the internet for a brief period, which made Chris Cornell fuming mad.
Wait a second. There's video of Brittany Murphy partying? That is crazy.
At Chris Cornell's wedding.
Oh, gosh.
So she obviously had to be part of this murdered conspiracy theory too.
Gosh,
she had to be taken out.
Who are some of the other hundreds of guests?
I don't know.
Hey, but again, there's a situation where if you look into the death of Brittany Murphy and her, I'm sorry, I think he was a piece of shit. Her husband, I think he treated her horribly. And then Simon and her mom kind of like seemed to have this thing after she died, which does happen in whatever. That's a strange story.
It's very strange.
It's a very strange story. I've been over it multiple times before, and it's just something weird there. But that story being strange is it's its own thing. So then you drag that in, and you're like, oh, but yeah, then they died, and it was mysterious, and it must be, yeah. I mean, come on.
Others circulated rumors that Bennington's mom had worked for John Podesta's campaign in the 80s as a volunteer. And the thing is, Bennington wasn't born until I think it was 76.
Okay.
So his mother would have had this affair with Podesta in the 70s and then went on to volunteer for his campaign in the 80s.
Okay. Well, if they had, that's possible.
Well, it is, but I think people are pointing to this. Well, she was a campaign volunteer, so obviously that's when she started having sex with him and got pregnant, right? But he was born before this, so I mean,
yeah. And Hillary Clinton was a Goldwater girl. God, it all makes sense now.
It does.
Yeah.
There's a music journalist named Randy Cody who's been very vocal in advocating for these various theories. In an interview, he said, "The globalist killing machine that is working hard to turn everything into a world government system work hard to keep the truth hidden from the good tax-paying citizens. I believe the Illuminati is fully at play and in charge of the situation. Yes, the Illuminati is real. And if you don't believe me, just spend an hour on YouTube searching for the subject and watching a couple of videos to help educate you, because YouTube. Hundreds of millions of people worldwide still think the Illuminati is a big joke. It is not. They are very powerful, and they want to kill everyone that gets in their way." He also said that the EMT, like the emergency responder that worked on Chris Cornell's lifeless body, was recorded in on audio, stating that Chris had, quote, trauma to the back of the head and possible signs of strangulation.
Ah, yes, from the rope.
Yet the autopsy...
From the ligature. Oh, sorry.
Yet the autopsy report by Theodore Brown in Detroit makes no mention of a head wound. Despite the fact, fans who watched Chris's final concert on YouTube noticed that a large chunk of hair has apparently been ripped out of his head in a violent manner. I guess you can see this
patch of hair gone
in the video.
Okay.
Right? You can read the comments from literally hundreds of fans. It's not just me who sees the head wound, is what this music journalist, Randy Cody, has stated.
Yeah, and that medical examiner that said he didn't mention that must be in the pocket of the Illuminati. So that's how that works. You can explain it all away.
Now,
Heather.
supposedly, the Chris and Vicky Cornell Foundation joined If Only, which is another organization to protect vulnerable children from predators, according to theorists. Cornell had acquired evidence connecting the Clintons to human trafficking when he worked with the Clinton administration on CPP, which is Clinton Preferred Pediatric Services in Haiti. Unfortunately, Cornell conveniently died along with several other journalists who were attempting to expose pedo rings like Comet Ping Pong, which was the pizza place involved in the Pizzagate scandal, Dylan.
Okay, you're kind of selling me on this thing now. I'm getting scared.
Well, this is what's been reported, but again, I'm not able to make legitimate connections.
And see, here's the thing. In this group of multiple people, who knows, one or the other could be. Take Avicii was a rather... I mean, it's hard to... You can't just say he wasn't outspoken or didn't have a position on this type of thing, right? And he's what, from the... Is it Swedish?
He's Sweden, yeah.
Hey,
Swedish.
a lot of weird shit's tied over there to that part of the world when it comes to human trafficking and children and stuff, right? I'm pretty sure that's where they found some very, very odd things.
News sources like the Rolling Stone and other mainstream media have tried to push the narrative that Cornell's substance abuse and mental illness was responsible for his alleged suicide. And of course, the same goes for Chester Bennington. Bennington mysteriously tweeted something on the morning of his death, quote, "I have evidence that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton."
What?
But others have pointed to the fact that it's really easy to forge a tweet these days, and that it could have potentially been for like like a fabricated tweet.
Who would do that?
I don't know, Dylan.
To what end?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I'm just a poor, unfortunate conspiracy theorist.
Q Anonas, I guess.
Oh my God, Q was right. What? I don't even know.
Something else that ties Chris Cornell into this conspiracy theory. By the way, I haven't been able to find any information about Anthony Bourdain working on any kind of child sex trafficking documentary.
That's because it's been scrubbed.
Supposedly.
Yeah, the internet's been cleaned. He was the
now the documentary that supposedly they were working on. It was something, I'll have to look it up. The Silence of something. There was a production group called Jelly Bean Productions that was actually working on this documentary, and they were trying to, I guess, crowdfund, like do a Kickstarter type of thing to raise money, and they were not reaching their goals. So they actually paused the documentary and then I think sort of dissolved the production group or the project months before Chris Cornell's death.
Okay, so basically...
But supposedly that was the documentary, and he was killed to keep it from happening. So my thing is, if he was involved in this documentary, I don't think it would have a hard time coming up with funding.
No, because he could either fund it.
Yeah.
I mean, how much is a doc cost? If you know what you're doing, you can do it on a shoestring budget,
exactly.
right? And have a really good, compelling documentary. And so, if he could fund it or make a couple of phone calls to a few buds in the biz. These people have plenty of money to play around with. So it's kind of strange if it was dissolving, basically, before his death, like months before his death. That's kind of weird because it sounds like it wasn't going to make it anyway.
It wasn't. And so if you have Anthony Bourdain, Chris Cornell, and Chester Bennington, all three of which have lots of money, very wealthy folks, if they wanted to fund and produce a documentary about child sex trafficking, I don't think they would have financial problems making it happen.
So when does Bourdain even come into the mix of this, or could you not really even tell? Because we looked and there.
I kind of can't even really tell when he came into this mix, right?
I'll tell you the damn truther story there is about the old girl.
Yeah, his girlfriend, Asia Argento.
Yas.
Right? So she had come out as one of the, during the Me Too movement, as one of the accusers of Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
That he had assaulted her.
And he's a piece of shit.
And he is a piece of shit. So she definitely, I kind of helped blow the lid off that with her story. But Asia Argento was accused of sexual assault in her own right, because one of her co-stars, I believe it was a 17-year-old boy, claimed that she seduced him, had sex with him, whatever, when he was underage. He was a minor. And there's a photo of this actor with Asia Argento in bed together, and while he is a minor.
Yeah, he's 17. That's not okay.
No.
Right?
So, yeah. And if people want to talk about Anthony Bourdain, then it's like, why are you not pointing to the fact that this young man, Jimmy Bennett, has claimed that Argento sexually assaulted him?
Yeah, and I remember when that came out, people were just kind of like, oh well. But if that had been a male actor and this had been a 17-year-old co-star female, people would have lost their fucking mind.
And if Anthony Bourdain is so hell-bent on fighting sex trafficking, then why would he be okay with his girlfriend or whatever and still support her through this accusation that she assaulted a 17-year-old? Doesn't really make sense.
Gosh, this makes my head swim.
Other folks,
it's like Hollow Earth is easier to talk about.
When we're talking about Chris Cornell, like other truthers have pointed to the lyrics from the song Hunger Strike, which was released back in 1991 by Temple of the Dog, which was like Eddie Vedder and of Pearl Jam, Chris Cornell.
Oh, right quick, I have this great little story about Hunger Strike.
Okay.
So Eddie was just what group was he with first? It wasn't Pearl Jam.
Mother Love Bone.
Yeah, so Mother Love Bone had gotten Eddie because I think their lead singer had suicide, right?
I believe he overdosed. Something like that.
Overdosed. So Mother Love Bone needed a new singer. Here's this young kid, Eddie Vedder. And they end up at the studio where Chris Cornell's at, and he's been working on this song, Hunger Strike. Well, they're kind of like, who's the new guy? So young Chris Cornell in there shredding on the vocals, but Eddie felt like he was struggling, right? And so he was like, hey, let me get some backup on that, and I'll help you because this is such a big song, as far as the vocals go. Okay, he gets in there, and they're just like, whoa. And the Mother Love Bone guys are like, okay, this kid might be pretty good. And so then Cornell actually rewrites the song into a duet because he loved it so much. And then that's how we end up with the version of Hunger Strike. And that led to Temple of the Dog.
That's awesome story, Dylan.
Thank you.
Because I loved this song back in the day.
Oh, dude, I love this song right now. This is one of my karaoke jams.
Okay, so folks, point to the lyrics. Yeah. And they're farming babies while the slaves are all working.
Yeah.
That Cornell was speaking about trafficking back in 1991.
Well, there was also blood. Blood was on the table.
Yeah.
And while the mouths were choking. So, I mean,
exactly.
I don't know what other point you need.
And he doesn't mind stealing bread from the mouths of decadents.
It's true.
I mean,
now, how long, you're talking these lyrics are being brought into this conversation. Lyrics from what? 20 plus?
1991. Honey, that's more like 30.
30 years ago.
Plus years ago.
30 plus years ago. And when I listen to that song,
I think of class issues.
I think of class. I think of either literal slavery or like the type of slavery we are all subject to now as normal people. Just owing your life to the company store kind of thing. And while they're working you to death, they're controlling your children. Income disparity. These are all the feelings I get. Literal slavery. And so I don't know. It seems like, I don't know. I guess you could say, 30 years ago he felt like this so strongly he made these lyrics. But I don't know, man. It seems like a stretch.
It seems like a stretch to try to tie a song from 1991 into sex trafficking,
In
which
the
was
modern
not
day.
as prominent.
Well, or unknown
Well, I'm
about.
saying it was not as prominently featured in the public view,
No,
right?
not at all.
In 1991, as it is now. So, and when I hear this song, I'm not thinking sex trafficking. I'm thinking of like, we need to eat the fucking rich.
Yeah.
Like, fuck the rich.
Bring back the guillotines.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And you're coming, and this song was in 91, and I've always looked at the time period as well. I mean, you're coming out of the Reagan 80s, right? You had a pretty, I'm not going to say a pretty harsh economic recession at this time, but you did in the late 80s, early 90s.
Dude, you had all kinds of stuff. You had the flight controller, air traffic controller strike, and the government actually breaking their backs of the union and forcing them back to work. That was a huge labor issue. Yeah, I mean, gosh.
We had union busting Reagan.
Union busting Reagan, all these changes to our schools, to our mental health system, just cutting, slashing social programs, everything across the board, and the introduction of something that we all suffer from still to this day, but we don't even talk about trickle-down economics.
Exactly.
Where the claim that if you put the money at the top, the very, very top, it's going to benefit people at the bottom more, which is fucking ridiculous. It's called being pissed on. Okay. But anyway,
this is a time when corporations
were
to gain more power.
Yes.
They were dissolving or kind of I guess eliminating the private media companies and merging into these big corporate overlords that we see today.
Yep.
So when I look at like everything that was happening in this time period, this song speaks to me about those issues, not so much about sex trafficking, something that people were not really talking about in 1991.
I agree. And that's from having lived through that period of
and farming babies while slaves are working. Well, they're farming the babies to be fucking slaves too. They're not farming babies for some other purpose in this song. I mean, come on. It's like basically we're farming babies
in the school
so they can grow up and
be a good worker.
And be a good little worker bee.
They're indoctrinating your children through the school system, which has been its intention the entire time. Not saying you can't get good out of the school system, and
Well, education has definitely crumbled over the last decade.
And this was all started to be accelerated during this time in the late 80s, early 90s to end us up where we are.
This is why you get Generation X. You get a generation, which we are on the tail end of, Dylan, that is facing the facts that we're not going to be able to own homes.
No.
We're not going to be able to have a single income household to raise our family.
We're not going to, the jobs are disappearing.
The American dream is gone.
Yes.
Yeah. So I look at all of that and I'm like, okay, I see why this song was written.
Latchkey kids, but then you get single moms.
This other generation who's like, it's about, these kids who didn't live through that want to be like, it's about sex trafficking.
It's about the bad boy of chefing, Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, I don't even know where this Anthony Bourdain, I can't even find
someone maybe can tell us
any connection to Anthony Bourdain and sex trafficking.
You know right? What I think it is he was such a bad boy of the kitchen, what is this? What is the chef industry so lacking of personality that Anthony Bourdain can be described as the bad boy of chefs?
And there's and I'm sorry, the documentary that supposedly the celebrities were working on is called Silent Children. I know it was Silent something. And there's no evidence at all of Anthony Bourdain having any connection to this at all.
Then I wonder how he got brought into the mix of this. I'm sure there's some reason out there. There's some.
But here's what did happen: is Asia Argento supposedly settled with Jimmy Bennington, and I believe it was for $380,000, which reportedly Anthony Bourdain paid.
Oh.
So, how can you connect this man to sex trafficking? Like he's trying to do something about it when he's literally paying off his girlfriend's settlement where she
for abused a
minor.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a juicy tidbit. It must have been the tatted sleeves on his arms. God, he was such a bad boy.
Others also want to point to Kate Spade, the designer, and that her suicide, it's on the fringes of getting grouped in with this theory as well.
Why does all these people commit suicide? Or, I'm sorry, unalive themselves? It's tragic.
Pressure, mental illness, depression. Money can't buy you happiness.
I mean, you hear that saying, and people's like, well, if I didn't have to wake up and worry about, making the light bill and water bill this, week, I might be happier. But I really do believe when it gets to a certain level and you can't go anywhere and just be a normal you know what I mean? I think that is the part, that, a big part that weighs on these stars and the entertainers is that you trade your life away.
Well, you trade your life away.
You trade normalcy.
You don't get to live normalcy, like the normal life. You don't get any kind of anonymity. You're always in the public eye. And I think when you're a creative person, artist, musician, whatever, I think, because I consider myself to be a creative person, Dylan, and I know that I've had my fair share of struggles with depression and anxiety and those issues. And I think a lot of people who are artistic and creative do tend to struggle.
And intelligent.
Right?
Because you can't just stick your head in the sand.
Exactly. You're right, Dylan. And you couple that with these pressures that you have on you to create. I mean, it's if you're a musician, it's always you got to come up with the next album that tops the last one.
Well, you got to always one up yourself.
If you're a designer, you're always got to come up with the next best thing. And Anthony Bourdain,
he's got to. I mean, what tattoos he going to get next?
Where's he gonna go eat some exotic weird food next? I mean, I don't know.
He's such a bad boy. All right. So, on this episode of Batshit Crazy, we're actually debunking.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to break down this theory because it's bothered me for some time. Because I'm like, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of evidence or facts to kind of back up this theory.
Right.
And so it's one that I definitely don't buy into. The only connection that seems to be odd for me is the Clinton Foundation supporting Chester Bennington's music for relief, or that his band's involved with in Haiti. And there have been a lot of accusations about sketchy shit that went down in Haiti.
And the missing billions of dollars?
Clinton Foundation and whatever.
Billions of dollars raised.
And
and people
Podesta
still
and Chester
intense.
Bennington, they look a fucking lot alike.
Yeah, I think that's the story here.
That's probably the only thing I'm getting out of this.
I think that's one that I find kind of very strange, and just looking into it briefly, I'm just like, wow, this is really weird. And of course, that's going to lead you, to 5 or 6 other threads, or maybe more, as far as Haiti and the Clinton Foundation and the White Hats. Or wait, that's another. Anyway, the NGOs and non-governmental organizations, a lot of those are shady and flying under the radar, and you never know who's financing them. So, I mean, I think that there's your story right there. Oh, my God, we have so much to talk about. We are back here in the studio, batshit crazy. And I'm telling you, I'm seeing some weird shit. The children screaming in wells, and you can't find them. The underground bases, the meat wagons. It's going to be a great season.
They don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That's why we have to bring it to them.
It's going to be a great season of Batshit Crazy, and I can't wait.
Yeah, we're back and ready to talk about more conspiracy theories. We love them. We hope you do as well. And we'll be back soon with another episode of Batshit Crazy.
Goodbye.